So, do I need I should put on the microphone? Okay. 1, 2, 3. Okay, Shalom Baruch everybody. Good to be back here after 2 years, Baruch Hashem, and in a new shul, a new setting. Yishtabach Shalom, Baruch Hashem. We're going to go into first, explain the power of Simcha, of joy, and then give practical application how to activate joy in life, because that's an issue, right? That's an issue how to be Simcha B'ezrat Hashem. We're going to start first to express what the Torah says. The Torah says in Parashat Ki Tavo, okay, the end of the Chumash, towards the end of Rhyme, it lists all types of punishments and curses that come upon the Jewish people. Why? So the verse towards the end says, Tachat asher lo avadatem et Hashem Elokechem besimcha ubetuv levav. All this is happening to you because you didn't serve Hashem besimcha. The pasuk says clearly, out of joy. It doesn't say because you didn't serve Hashem. It says because you didn't serve Hashem besimcha. That's why all the klalot and punishments are coming out of you. This is an answer very strong to the Litvish world. They say, what does it say? Mitzvah gedol aliyat besimcha tamid. Where does it say that? So here's the answer. It's the cup behind everything. The Torah itself saying, if you're not doing the mitzvot out of joy, you're in danger. What's the danger? Is that if now your attitude in serving Hashem is very dry and bitter and a struggle, it won't last. You won't continue. There will be no continuity to that because it's coming out of pain. It's out of a burden. Whereas if a person has simcha in doing it, he's able to pass that down. There was always this famous story of two families that came to Ellis Island back, 1920s, whatever. And back then, the challenges of being religious were crazy. Okay, and the 80% of the Jews, they just dropped everything because they had no other choice but to work on Shabbat and to desecrate. And it was almost impossible to keep the Torah in order to survive in North America at the time. So there's a famous story of two families. One, the father, they were both religious. The father, he could not work on Shabbat for sure. But if you didn't go to work on Saturday, you lost your job. So every week he was looking for a new job. And at home, he couldn't stand the pain of seeing his family starving and no food at home and everybody's upside down. And he's stressed. And also his wife was stressed and everyone. So eventually they fell in and they started to work on Shabbat. And they lost all their kids. The kids grew up into marriage and everything. And there was another family, same predicament, same situation, where, the father also every week had to find a new job because he didn't go to work on Shabbos. So, but he would come home Shabbos, Friday night, sometimes a whole week went by with not finding a new job. So there's no food at the Shabbos table. And yet he was able to be happy that Hashem put me in this situation. This is what Hashem wants of me. And I'm doing what I'm supposed to do in life. He was able to permeate a radiance of joy to his children. So that even though there was no food and nothing, but the atmosphere was so happy, he was able to calm them down to the extent that when eventually things did get better, and he found another job, and he didn't have to work anymore on Shabbat, he was able to raise all of his children in Torah values because the father was able to instill a joy, a happiness. As opposed to the other guy who was always nervous, what am I going to do? And this and that. There was a simcha that was permeating, okay? In BRESLOV also, we have a story of this is an extreme story, just an extreme example, but to show how far-reaching this is. There was one of the big devotees of BRESLOV. His name was Rabbi Avraham ben Rav Nachman. He's authored a very deep commentary on the Likutei Moharan called BORO Likutim. In his early years of marriage, he would take a sack of bread and a big sack of books and go to the forest the entire week. He would leave his wife from Sunday morning or Motzei Shabbat and come back Friday, okay? Normal people would go crazy, divorce after maybe 2 days, not after a week, after 2 days, like that. She understood what he was doing and her pressure and lachatz. She obviously had family relatives and people to help her and everything, but he did that because he was working on trying to develop himself. He had her consent, but it was hard for her. That's the level these people are holding at. So she said, though, that when he would come back on that Friday, he had such a smile on his face and such a joy and a feeling of calmness and that everything is amazing. She forgot about the whole week. The whole week that went by that she's all alone and there's no one to help her and she's doing this and that. Him coming on Friday with just the joy on the face, that shut her up. That was enough for her. We're not talking about doing this. I'm just saying how far-reaching is the presence of mind and the simcha, the joy that a person has that it permeates, okay? So we see from this, as an example, that simcha is needed for functioning and also for continuity. They want to continue my Judaism. We see so many cases, unfortunately, of people who, for example, start in BRESLOV or Baal Tshuvas, whatever. There's a big fire in the beginning. And the fire is not out of joy, it's called hitlahavut, out of hitorut, out of arousal. But then that fire is taken away, and the majority of people, after that initial light is taken away, they tend to crash because they don't couple it with simcha. There has to be simcha. Simcha is a hard devotion. For sure, it's a hard devotion. But that's what we have to work on. This is the key. If you have simcha, you have everything else. That's what Rabbi Nachman teaches in many lessons, especially the lesson we're going to work on tonight. It's Likutei Moharan lesson 24. That simcha is the key for everything. The pasuk that's the key for everything is ki besimcha tetzeu. With joy, you get out of everything. That's how Rabbi Nachman interprets this verse. The verse on the Pshat is talking about the future redemption. Ki besimcha tetzeu, that God willing in the future, you will come out through joy. Rabbi Nachman interprets ki besimcha, it's through simcha, not it's going to be the result, but through simcha, you will come out of the exile, B'ezrat Hashem. And which exile? Not just the general exile, but each rut and difficulty you're passing through in life, the doors to open it are simcha. As opposed to, oh my God, what am I going to do? I have to speak to this guy, this lawyer, and this and that. And the person starts running 5,000 places, and he's traumatized and shocked and everything. That's not going to get him to the final solution. What's going to bring him to clarity and to get to the right address is work on simcha. It's like sometimes we see we're in a situation which is serious, and there's one guy, he starts dancing and clapping and he's happy, and we get angry at him. You don't care about the situation, you're dancing and happy and smiling. What do you do? Something. He's doing the right thing. He is trying to activate an attitude of there's a good word in English, I just remember it, of calmness and peace of mind and yeshuv hadat, that's really the word in Hebrew. And he knows that this is the key to get to the solution. The other guys, okay, we'll try this, we'll try that. And the worries, they're doing 5,000 things, but at the end of the day, they got nowhere with it. They did, okay, I spoke to this, I did that, and that. And they see at the end of the day, what did I get out of all it? Almost nothing. Whereas the guy who's able to activate simcha, Hashem sends him his way. This guy calls him all of a sudden, you have this type of problem, I say, yes, exactly. What do you have to offer? Well, I have this and this and that. And he solves the problem in 5-10 minutes like that. It's a big musar in life. And we all know that this is a big test. Because when we're talking, it's easy to do lip service, but when we're squeezed in the situation, we admit it's not difficult. However, if a person trains so much himself to be in a simcha mode and attitude, generally, and he's eating about simcha, drinking about simcha, learning about simcha, davening about it, and doing everything, so when a traumatic and stressful situation pops up, by reflex and by instinct, the person will fall onto being besimcha because he's working on it so much, it already sinks in his subconscious that this is the derech, and it comes automatically, B'ezrat Hashem, okay? So because of that, simcha is such a fundamental point. He brings even further, the Ramban, Rav Moshe ben Nachmanides, he points out that in the Hebrew language, Lashon HaKodesh, the word for the nervous system is atzabim, ayin tzadik bet yud mem, and it shares the same root for sadness and depression. Atzvut in Mara Shchora, atzvut also has ayin tzadik bet. The Ramban teaches this is way before Rabbi Nachman's time, okay? That when a person gets worried and falls in the trap of sadness, it begins to have a direct repercussion and effect on the nervous system. And when the person's nervous system is not working properly, he can't think straight also. Everything starts not working sloppy. You see sometimes, something amazing, that when you're having a nervous day, you see that you're trying, like, for example, close a bottle, and you can't close even the bottle anymore. The cap falls off. You say, oh, damn it, everything's negative anyways. There's negative energy activated, and you're even more upset. Who initiated it is the attitude you're having. It draws a halo and an effect, an influence on the surrounding. So, but when a person is positive, happy, things, Baruch Hashem, more or less work out. And if they don't work out, your attitude that you're so like laid back and happy about everything fixes everything. It's like, okay, everything is just working out beautiful, fine and dandy, and things do more or less work out in the proper way. From all this, we see how Simcha is so important. We spoke a little about Parshat Kitavot. So I had to bring on the side something a bit funny, sad but funny. In Yerushalayim, next to the grave of King David HaMelech on Har Zion, there's the original Yad Vashem memorial. It's called the Martef HaShoah. That was the original one. The Jews, the survivors came to Eretz Yisrael after 1950, whatever. So the original memorial for the Jews Holocaust was on Har Zion. Sorry, afterwards when they took back the land from the Jordanians, etc. So there they have on display a jacket made from a Sefer Torah that the Nazis, one Nazi guard, forced a Jewish tailor in the camps to take the Sefer Torah and to make him a jacket in order to degrade the morale of the Jews in the camp. So the tailor was very smart. What did he do? He took all the curses of Parshat Kitavo and put them on the back. So the Nazi guard, he put on the jacket and on his back, Arur, 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 he had all the curses on the back. So he's walking and the Jews are sad of the Sefer Torah, but this he has all the curses on his back and Magia, you know, right? It's on the side. So Simcha is of paramount importance and it's difficult. And Rabbi Nachman Baruch Hashem offers major advice how to activate Simcha. The first and foremost advice he gives is, believe it or not, to act silly and tell jokes. He says, Rabbi Nachman, that because people today are so stuck in such difficult situations today, which were unheard of from the time of creation, what we're going through today. So the only way, it seems, he says, to get people happy is yes to act silly and act jokes. You would think, the Gemara says itself, there is a worry, a pachad, a chashash of being too lightheaded, too joking, in a joking attitude and manner, that we're worried it leads to what's called kalut rosh, and a person begins to become lenient in Torah observance. However, the danger of depression today and of sadness is so strong that the damage of lightheadedness, that cause, is much less than the damage caused today by sadness and depression, that it's out of need and necessity that a person does everything, even jokes and acting silly, to be happy in order to distance himself as much as possible from sadness and depression. So his number one advice, Rav Nosson explains, is that a person, yes, act silly, tell jokes, be in a funny attitude, be a light person, be that way. Rav Nosson once wrote to his son, Rav Yitzchak, he said, I received from Rabbi Nachman that a person should be always joyous. And if you, my son, you see elders of the BRESLOV movement that they're walking on a very serious face and that, don't accept that as the real truth. Because I received from Rabbi Nachman otherwise. I received from the Rebbe that a person has to be happy and and by the way, frum. Yes, it has to be frum in your Shemaim, but the first and foremost factor is he has to be happy and positive. Not to have that cold face, with high steam and this. You have to be happy. You have to have it in a very, has to be very happy, not cold. We need, not cold kugel, we need a hot kugel, a hot chocolate, right? Okay? I have to sell some jokes already to get people laughing a little. Okay? Thank you. Very appreciated. Now say that again. Okay? Fine. So Rav Nosson explains more about this. He says, because the Simcha of holiness has fallen so much into the klipot, into the tuma, we have to use their attitude, the attitude of the evil, which is joking and comedy and lightheadedness. That's the only way that we can enter the domain of evil and extract the true simcha that's trapped there. The only way today is by acting silly and telling jokes and having that mentality. That's the only way, because that's the only you can get into to get in. They let you in. Have like the guard, the big Schwarzer guard. Okay, what's your name, man? Okay, you're standing at the door, and you start acting silly, funny. Okay, go in, and you go inside. All right, and you can extract and bring out. That's why silliness and joking is a prime priority. However, it's not always possible. There are times when you're so heavy that if you try to tell a joke, it doesn't work. Or sometimes you need someone else to tell a joke, and that other person is not around to tell you the joke. You're stuck. So there's other advices. Another advice Rabbi Nachman gives is to simply clap your hands and dance and sing, okay? Especially during davening. Davening, you should know, Rabbi Nosson writes, the main reason why it's so difficult to daven properly. When we say daven properly, we mean to daven with kavana and full force merging with the words of the tefillah. The main reason Rabbi Nosson writes is because people are davening without simcha. You hear this? I'll say it again. He says clearly, the main reason why not davening, and the davening is, okay, let's get on with it, because I have to get to work. Even the biggest people, the biggest tzaddikim, they have this big challenge in davening. The reason why is because the lack of simcha is such a weight, a burden, especially in the morning when you wake up. You just woke up, you're heavy, you're 160 and you get out of bed and you're heavy, and you're looking at the mirror, or look at the mirror, whatever. You just look, you feel totally out of it and spaced out. And from this, with the devotions of the morning, the mikveh, the driving to the shul, the walking, the pumping of the heart, Birkot HaShachar, Birkot Torah, you hope that eventually when you get to the main davening, you get into it. You do some learning, maybe a little, you learn a piece of Hasidus, whatever, in order to get inside. And still, you see that it's hard to connect to the davening. So Nosson again, he stresses, the reason is because a person is lacking joy. Because of that, they say, it's a big avodah before davening in the morning to make yourself happy. If it's telling jokes to someone else, if it's dancing, putting on some music, but doing a lot to be in a positive frame of mind before the morning prayers, you'll have a better chance of concentrating on the davening. Rabbi Nosson says this, okay? So simcha, joy, can be generated by clapping your hands, by singing, and besides that, even just clapping the hands in davening, Rabbi Nachman teaches in lesson 44, 45, 46, that what clapping hands does to a person when he's praying is phenomenal. It transforms the air around the person into the air of the Holy Land, of Eretz Yisrael. So that even though you're in Timbuktu or Broadway or wherever, and you start davening and you clap your hands, so the air becomes transformed to the air of Eretz Yisrael, and you saying words, you breathe in this air, and then you say words of the davening with this air coming out. So you're saying words of Eretz Yisrael, and the whole idea of Eretz Yisrael is simcha. Okay, the idea sova smachot et panecha nemod b'mincha netzach. There's a few psukim and proves to that idea that simcha and Eretz Yisrael are connected. Eretz Yisrael is the land of the living and the land of simcha. Okay, of joy. So, and when a Jew is davening in Eretz Yisrael format and mode, so that's real davening. It's all out of joy. So that's the idea of clapping hands. And just on the side, obviously, when you daven, if it's bothering other people to clap your hands, you don't clap your hands so loud. You do it quietly or so whatever. If you're in a minyan where it bothers other people, obviously, so there's a way to do it that doesn't bother other people. But it's an amazing devotion. So we have here dancing, telling jokes, acting silly. Another advice, if this doesn't help, we have a higher advice, and that's finding the good points in yourself. And that's a hard one also. This is really a difficult one, and that a person is generally tends to be negative. Oh, I'm sorry I didn't do this. Oh my God, I didn't do that, and I didn't do this. And the person is always blaming himself subconsciously and guilty, guilt feelings. I didn't do this. A guy, even the biggest of the Hashem, I didn't wake up on time, I lost an hour, and this and that. And they wake up with the attitude of losing. That's exactly the opposite of the Torah. The Torah teaches us, the halacha teaches us, that when you wake up, the very first thing you say is what? You don't say, oh, I woke up late. You say, Modani. You say, Modani. You don't say, oh my God, look at the time and everything. You say, Modani. The Torah is guiding us. Your attitude has to be positive when you wake up. You have to say, Modani. I thank you, Hashem. Thank you. Even though I woke up at 12 o'clock and not at 7, I thank you, Hashem. Okay? I know some people, they say, if you wake up out of bed and you didn't say Modani, so you go back to bed and you say Modani and get out a second time. Okay? Mama? Yeah. Sleep another half an hour and then say Modani. Okay?
It's easier for people to find the good points in others themselves.
Right. But he says Rav Nosson writes, the main way to find good in other people is it first starts by finding good points in yourself. From the wording in Azamra, lesson 282, it comes out that he says you have to first find in yourself and then afterwards in other people. Okay? There's a mashma'ut from Rav Nosson how he teaches it in Kitzur Likutei Moran. He explains it starts with yourself, because if you can't judge yourself favorably, automatically you can't look at other people good either. The Metzuda David, he says something phenomenal. He says something amazing. People don't know this. When a person is happy, he feels that the whole world is happy with him. When a person is happy, really happy, they won the lottery. He won the lottery. They didn't. So the person won the lottery. He starts hugging everybody. He starts kissing everybody. I won the lottery. Oh my God. He starts running around and everything because he feels the nature of person who's happy is he feels that the whole world all of a sudden is smiling at him and everybody's happy with him. They're not really happy, but he is so happy and he's going out towards them because he sees an image of himself in other people. Wow, everyone's happy. They may not really be happy, but he is really happy and he sees it in them. That's the feedback he's getting from them. It's I think it's the Metzuda who says that on the Tanakh on one pasuk. I saw it recently. Beautiful. Okay. Huh? He's projecting it and he's getting the feedback from what he's projecting. Okay? Or Yashar or Choser. So there was just a story on the side, a cute story with Ben Zion Apter. Ben Zion Apter was a BRESLOVer who survived the Holocaust. He went through a very difficult experience. He lost his family, etc. And he had major access to the BRESLOVer Hasidim in pre-World War II Poland. And he would go around from shtetl to shtetl, visiting all the BRESLOVers. He had a phenomenal memory. He had in his head about the names off by heart, the names in villages, about 30,000 people in his head, this man. He had a phenomenal memory, this guy, okay? So once he went to visit a BRESLOVer who was sick in bed, and he came to the BRESLOVer's house, and he was lying in bed, and the BRESLOVer who was sick told Rabbi Zion, I made a whole pot of soup. Please help yourself with a bowl of soup. So Ben Zion prepared himself, took a bowl of soup. He started just sipping the soup, and he said, this is a soup of sadness and depression. And he poured it on the floor on the guy's house, and then he took him out of the bed, and he started dancing with him, and he said, now I want you to make another bowl of soup, and you'll see it'll taste much better now. Okay, the idea of how Simcha, Nekuda Tovot, has an influence. So this is the point of Nekuda Tova, okay? And all of these, by the way, telling jokes and also clapping the hands and singing a nigun and davening, those Karla Bach minyans, they have an amazing power and a benefit. Sometimes you see a Karla Bach minyan and they start singing, you get taken away. Really, it's powerful how nigun and davening can really change the davening, okay? Nigun and davening is powerful. It's unbelievable. And the idea of finding the good points, all the backbone of all these things is it leads a person to having a feeling of thanksgiving, hoda'ah. Because what happens when you're happy is you want to begin to thank Hashem. Thank you, thank you. The thanksgiving attitude is there. That's how it's represented. It becomes reflected in thank you, Hashem. Hoda'ah. You're able to give thanks. That's why the bulk of Shacharit, for example, the bulk of the book of Tehillim is made up of hoda'ah. There's a lot of thanks, hodot, and praising Hashem and giving thanks for the miracles. So that's really the main byproduct of joy is that you're able to give hoda'ah and give thanks, okay? Finally, when a person can't do any of these things, he can't act silly, he can't dance, he can't find his good points, and because of all this, he can't give thanks to Hashem. There's one final advice, the strongest of the strongest, that Ibn Nachman gives that a person can use to be b'simcha always. And that is that a person needs to have a tzaddik in his life. He needs to have a true tzaddik in his life. Rav Nosson explains in the Likutei Halachot, Birkat Hoda'ah Halach Havav, explains that the Beit HaMikdash was burnt twice, right? First temple by the Babylonians, second by the Romans, fine. And the Gemara says clearly that the Oivim, the enemies, they burnt the Beit HaMikdash up to the Yesod, up to the foundation. Aval velo ad bichlal, but not including the foundations. In other words, the temple was burnt up to the ground, up to the foundation stones, but not including. Even though we have also the Kotel HaMaravi, fine, But also says that the enemies did not burn the Yesod. What does that signify? What does that mean? Ravnossi explains like this, that when a person is burnt out, every person has in his body a miniature Beit HaMikdash. The brain is called the Hechal, Kodesh Kodashim, and the heart is the idea of the Mishkan, like that song, Bilvavi, Mishkan Evne, right? The Mishkan, the altar of the Beit HaMikdash is like the hearts. The emotions are that's the fire, the heat of the temple, of the altar. And the Kodesh Kodashim is the brain, the mind, the Holy of Holies, the Sechah, okay? When a person has done what he's done in his life, and he's literally burnt. Yes, I'm burnt. That said, Hashem, I admit I'm burnt out. I'm burnt out after what I've gone through in my life, what I've done, etc. I've burnt my temple, my Beit HaMikdash. If a person, though, stands upon a Yesod being a tzaddik Yesod Olam, he has a tzaddik that he is based upon. Even though he did what he did, but my life, my hashkafa, my conduct, everything is based on tzaddikim, on true tzaddikim. If you have this strong yesod, no matter what you may go through, no matter even what sadness you may be exposed to, if you have this tzaddik, he's always out there to give you that boost to start again, to have this boost to continue and to get up again and to rebuild and to be b'simcha, to start again with simcha. He has the power to infuse you with that joy of hope that you can start again, and it's a fresh page. You know, the person may have done the worst things, but now I'm willing to start again. And to start again requires simcha, by the way. To be able to start again, to pick up your feet and to give another shot, that requires at least a drop of simcha in order to do that. You need simcha as a factor. So this is what the big tzaddikim can give. There's a story, I'm just going off also a little bit. There's a story of a man who once came to the shul in Mea Shearim, the BRESLOV shul in Mea Shearim. He himself told this story to Rabbi Yaakov Meir Shechter. This man, he, before the Holocaust, came from a prominent Hasidic family in Poland. And because of the turbulent times before the Holocaust of atheism, of kfirot, of people falling off the path, this young man got married, you know, nice Hasidic family and everything, but he began to have tendencies for philosophy and to become modern and to go to university and to develop and to go away from Yiddishkeit. Even though he grew up in an upbringing that was against that, but he had this tendency and it was bothering him. And it's got bigger and bigger until he decided that's it, he's leaving Judaism, he's leaving the Torah world and everything, and he went off to another path, and eventually he ended up becoming a priest, a Catholic priest in the Vatican. And he was so against Judaism that when the Nazis, they came to Italy, and no one knew he was Jewish, he helped them find Jews who were hiding to send them to be killed. The meaning, he helped to kill other Jews by helping perpetrate what the finding and all that. After the war and the devastation, he realized, he woke up, what he did, and he felt that his life is finished. There's nothing to live for. Hashem for sure will not accept such a person back. You helped kill Jews. You killed your brethren. Are you normal? What is this? He felt so bad. He didn't know what to do. He left the Vatican. He left Italy. He went back to his hometown, and the houses where he lived in like Warsaw, wherever, which were destroyed by the bombs in there and the Germans, whatever. And he sat in the ruins of one of the houses there that were approximately where he lived. And he was hoping that just the wall would fall on him. He was just sitting there, not knowing what to do with his life, hoping that that something will happen to him. He's sitting there, not knowing what to do. And while sitting there, he saw a little book, there, like on the scraps and the mess and everything. He saw an intact book in Hebrew, the Lashon HaKodesh, the Torah book. He picked it up and he started reading it, and page after page of hope. There's hope. You can make it. Visit Hashem to start again, even after doing whatever you've done. It sounds like Meshivat Nefesh, the book, okay? It sounds like it. He said to Rav Shechter that this book gave him the push to start again in life. Even though he did what he did, he eventually came to Eretz Yisrael, started again. He never told anybody this story. He told Rav Shechter, decided to tell him, because he said like this, I don't know what book it was, but I did know it was a BRESLOV book. That's all I know. It was teachings from Rabbeinu, from Rabbi Nachman, to give a person that boost, okay? Unbelievable. So this is the final point, that if you have a tzaddik in your life, meaning you live your life according to his eitzot and directives, this tzaddik, Rav Nosson explains, he takes achrayut, responsibility, that you will never fall in a situation of sadness and depression. And if you do fall in sadness and depression, so you have to check your connection, like internet connection, check your internet connection. You have to check your tzaddik connection if it's valid and if it's strong enough and it works properly. Please laugh. I don't want to need to laugh. We need some smiles here. Okay, very good. Thank you. All right. We need an internet connection to the tzaddik on internet, this holy connection that should be functioning and wired properly. If it's Wi-Fi or not, that's another India. But it should be properly done. And if it is, you will always have a source, huh? 5G. Why? Okay. You have always this source of koach and strength. Because people wonder, where do you get the strength to hold on after what you went through in life and this and that? Where do you get this koach? The answer is, I get the koach from the Rebbe. I get the koach from Rabbeini's teachings, from the Rebbe's teachings, from his etzot, the advice. I have this strength, which is not my koach, it's a superhuman strength, to start again, to be happy, to continue, to start again, fall, up, down, but I'm still in the picture. This comes from the tzaddik, B'ezrat Hashem.
Even those people who made those starts over and over again, and they weren't successful, those unsuccessful starts come back to help them.
Rav Nosson gives a rule, and it's a big rule in everything. The rule is the wording of the Zohar. Leit reuta tava veitavit. There's no good desire that's ever lost. Which means all those good starts and the setbacks, but the good starts that were leading up to the setbacks, they're kept on the side, on the reserve, and they add up, until finally person's started and fallen again and again. Time has come that so much is added up. Now is the time to have the breakthrough of having a major opening in life, where you don't have these types of downs again. You go into a different ball game, a different dimension. It adds up. It's never, ever lost. That's a rule. It's in Likutei Halachot, Mincha Halacha Zayin, that he goes into this idea that the Ratzonot are never, ever lost. It's kept in. He says this is specifically someone who's attached to a tzaddik. The tzaddik takes everything because, yes, there exists a type of Torah and Torah study and mitzvot and everything. That if a person is alone, not for tzaddik, it can get lost. Yes, it can lose its way. But he says there in that lesson that if you have a tzaddik, he collects instantly all the good points of his followers. He helps them to have it stored. It's stored like in the Swiss bank account. It's untouched. It's mamash held there and cannot be taken out ever again. And it comes to the help of the person, the assistance to come back on B'ezrat Hashem. So what comes out of all this is that there's many ways. There's even much more. Rav Nosson gives even more examples. Pardon?
When we start again, it becomes easier.
Because of the previous start times you started. B'ezrat Hashem. I hope so. B'ezrat Hashem. But through all this and much more, Rav Nosson says we have many ways how to be b'simcha, and you have no excuse to be sad based on all this. There's no opening for you to be sad. And if you feel sad and worried, you got to check the connection. There's something wrong here. I'm doing something which is not right. It can't be that this is happening. Like that famous analogy of the Maggid of Dubno. The Maggid of Dubno gave the analogy of someone who had a servant, and he sent the servant to pick up a parcel from the post office. And the servant comes back about an hour and a half later, half dead, schlepping a bag of bricks. After he lands with the bricks, and the guy said, "Why you took so long? It only takes 5 minutes to get to the post office." He's like, "What you told me to get? I can't lift up my hands now, and I broke my hands." He said, "What is this?" He looked at the address. He said, "This is the wrong address. They gave you the wrong package. It's not the right package." The nimshal, if now serving Hashem becomes a burden, and with sadness and that, then the person should know he has the wrong address. Something is wrong here. I'm doing something which is not right. I have to reevaluate what I'm doing to see why is it so difficult that it becomes unbearable and impossible to handle.
Could the sukkah be sprinkling sadness and depression and your joy and your happiness that you're trying to achieve it? She doesn't want you to get there.
Yes, that's a Torah in the Kutemor and Tinyana. I think it's Torah Tet, Tinyana, that the tzaddik tries to blow off the afrit on the heart. A Jew has a heart that wants to serve Hashem, and the Yetzirah, Rav Nosson explains this also, that idea, he tries to cover the person's heart, his heart in serving Hashem, with like a type of a covering of dust to prevent the heart from functioning properly. Spiritually, it's covered with dust, like a furit. And you need a tzaddik who has a pure heart. I forget the exact lesson of the Torah and the Likutei Moharan, but you need a tzaddik who is able to blow off this afur, this dust that's covering the heart from its expression in service of Hashem. That's what you're saying here. That the Yitzhak can come, you have a simcha, and he comes to attack. But you should have the upper hand. There should be, if you're following the right advice, you should be able to push it off, Mizat Hashem, and not let it to overturn your entire life. Right?
Proper time for sadness?
Proper time for sadness. There are times in life, according to Torah requirement, that a Jew does things to make it more difficult to be happy. For example, our mourning during Shiva, when a relative dies, there's no mitzvah to be sad. There's a mitzvah to remember and mourn the loss, but to be sad, and that's dangerous. Anytime you expose yourself to sadness, it's very, and even if you want to call it a justified sadness, it's 99% going to lead to real sadness and depression, and that's bad. That's dangerous. Even on Tisha B'Av, where the whole Jewish people are mourning in the 3 weeks, we do things to make it more difficult to be comfortable and proper in order to feel discomfort, so I relate to what I'm mourning about, that there's a lack. Mourning, the laws of mourning, when a relative dies. We do all these things of discomfort, showers and sitting on the floor, and all these acts of mourning in order that we should feel the lack of that member of the family, but not so much to lead to sadness, but rather to lead to activate the yearning. Something phenomenal, people don't think about that. But avelut is in order to activate yearning. There's a devotion to wake up at midnight called Kimat Chatzot. And we say there that the purpose of getting up for Chatzot and mourning over the temple, we get up at midnight to cry over and mourn over the destruction of the temple. And there we say, Lasum la'avelei Tzion pe'er tachat efer. To give to those who mourn over Tzion, we give them pe'er, glory, over the efer, the ashes. Meaning, whoever mourns and expresses enough yearning over what's missing, they reward that person with pe'er, with glory. In other words, there's an opening. The mourning is to activate yearning and then bring forth a major opening for that person. But sadness, there's no room in Judaism for sadness. What?
Middle of the shtusa, middle davening doesn't probably go together, right?
There's some people where the davening is so heavy that you can cut them with a rock. You can take a hammer, you smash them, you can crack them. There are people who are so heavy with davening that you have no other choice but in the middle of davening, take the guy next to him, and they start dancing and making faces and everything in order to get that person to shmeichel, to get that shmeichel out in the face, because that's what we want. The person has to have a positive. Sometimes it's needed. Yes, unfortunately. I know what you're thinking. You come to Rav Yitzchak Ben, you start going like this. He would probably kick you out of Al Me'asharim if you were to do that. Okay, but we're talking about people today, what we're going through, huh?
You have the connection to the family. It's not meant.
No, but Mila Deshtuta, the advice of Mila Deshtuta, and that it should work, and you should remember to do it, is thanks to having a tzaddik. Most people, they're so down, they need a reminder, they need someone to remind them to be acting silly. Even the advice of acting as silly and finding comes from the tzaddikim. That's an advice. Okay? That's an advice here. I hear what you're saying, but people, each person, each situation is different. You gotta make a chok. No silliness during davening allowed. Everyone turn off your cell phone and turn off your silly mode and put it there. Some people, they're so in their davening, they're so miserable and depressed and they're davening because they have to, right? And they just want to finish it. And they're so disconnected. Sometimes such people need a milita shtut in the middle. They need a milta. Yes, they need a milta. They need a funny joke in the middle and everything. And this guy's laughing non-stop. Oh, Hashem. They need something to make them so happy so that then they get back on their feet. Each case is different. Average people, no. Average people, you would think more or less. I don't know what's average. I don't know what's average people anymore today. I don't know. I see everybody with serious faces. Wherever I daven, I see people with serious faces. I don't need more what's considered normal. If that's norm or something else. But the attitude in davening should be positive. I remember that maybe 30 years ago in the BRESLOV shul, these elders, they were clapping their hands nonstop in the davening. They made you feel the davening. And today it's a bit colder. It's lacking. Even Avraham Nachman, he points out, it's brought down in Siach Sapei Kodesh, that he said, Avraham Nachman, that he noticed that when the BRESLOVers, they dance, they're not dancing out of Simcha, they're dancing out of Hitorerut. You hear that? He said they did not yet reach the level of dancing out of Simcha. They're dancing out of, like you have someone who's on a high and he's dancing out of the high. So it's considered dancing not out of Simcha, but that because he has an arousal, a spiritual arousal. He says the main thing is that you're so sameach that you see it, you're jumping. Rav Michal Dorfman, you remember Rav Michal Dorfman? When he came to Eretz Yisrael from Russia, for about 10 years, from 1972 to 1982, people remember when he would dance after the davening in the breast of Shalom Yasharim, he was jumping up and like doing kazatskas with his feet, jumping out in the dancing after the davening, because he felt the simcha that he was zoche to leave Soviet Russia, communist Russia, and to make it to Eretz Yisrael. He appreciated so much, and he still was a bit relatively young. He was jumping up out of simcha because he felt it. You understand? There's a simcha that dancing out of joy as opposed to dancing because I have to dance. I have to be serious, a Rebbe of the Gabarim, real serious. No, we need simcha. We need a dancing where it's mamash coming out of the simcha. I think we covered a lot. I don't know, we can go on more and more and more. But B'ezrat Hashem, I think we covered mainly this is the ways really how to be simcha, and a Jew should strive for this attitude. Rabbi Nachman also, we can finish with this, that he said in Chayei Moharan, don't learn from me. Don't learn from me. That if you see me walking around with a very sad expression and a serious and a broken face, a broken-hearted expression, don't learn from me. Me, I'm busy trying to pave a new path for you people to follow upon. And I have to cut, he gives the knowledge, you have to cut trees that are growing for thousands of years, to cut them and to make a clear path for people to serve Hashem in an easier format. So I'm busy cutting and cutting and cutting. So of course I have a sad expression because it's hard work. But you, he said to his followers, he says, you guys have to have a happy visage. You have to have a happy expression. It has to be positive. That's the attitude that he wanted us to have. B'ezrat Hashem. Yes.
So sometimes I find that working on being happy, and there's sometimes blockages in that area, could be that itself could be like a challenge.
A detrimental
meaning like
stage.
Meaning, yeah, like why am I feeling this way? I should be feeling happy now. Why am I feeling happy? So there's sometimes I find that like accepting that, like, oh, now I'm feeling sad or not happy or having a challenge, that could be like.
We'll answer with a Sinha. I think it's in Sichot Haran. That Rabbi Nachman gave a lesson in the Likutei Moharan, part 2, lesson 17, of the power of being happy on Shabbat. And when he gave that lesson over, he asked Rav Nosson, are you happy on Shabbat? And Rav Nosson answered, sometimes I have an arousal. Sometimes I have a hitorerut. In Yiddish, a frumkeit. I feel a very big arousal. Rabbi Nachman said, that's not the way. The main way is to be besimcha. So when he heard this, he began to feel, oh my God, how am I going to do this now? And then Rabbi Nachman read his mind. He says, now you have what to be sad about. And he said, Rav Nosson, he read my mind. Because now that he's telling me how to be simcha, and I'm not besimcha, it's not happening like it should. So now I'm worrying, fretting, like you just said now, how to be simcha. So Rav Nosson answered, at least I want to be besimcha. So Rabbi Nachman said to everyone, did you hear what he said? He said correct. Right? And Rav Nosson writes, Kalomar, in other words, if I can't succeed to be happy, at least I want to be happy. And the wanting to be happy is already enough. It should be enough to console me and not let me get in the bougie bougie craziness of you're sad and you're not, it's not happening and you're not besimcha and it's over. To get out of that is automatically you put a stop, but I want to be happy. You can do with me what you want. I have my want. I want to be happy. I've never had some. It should be enough to console a person. Even though he's not happy, he says, at least I want to be happy with Hashem. So that solves this, that helps in this situation. In the challenge, I'm happy and I'm not really happy and it's not happening. So at least I want to be happy. At least I have the retzonot. And that goes back to what we said at the beginning of the class. The more you daven about it, the more you learn about it, the more you get into it, it becomes a part of your subconscious, of your neshama. So that when, yes, you're faced with a test where other people would start going nuts and have a trauma attack and have like an anxiety attack and you have to call Hatzal and everything, you, on the other hand, are able to take it easy and clap your hands and Hashem is big, Ashreinu. Everyone may think you're nuts, but you're doing the right thing and you're getting out of the situation because you're working so much on it becoming a part of yourself. You fall on it almost instantaneously. It's an amazing advice. The advice of Simcha is a means and it's a goal. It's, in other words, it leads to openings in everything. When this is not working out, Simcha. When this is not working out, Simcha. Everything, for every situation, when there's a blockage, Simcha, as opposed to worrying, how are you going to figure this out now? How am I going to do this? Normally, when the head is in the right place, the idea comes up. I said by me personally that when, oh my God, where did I put my wallet? Oh my God, my wallet. And you start thinking about 5,000 places and you can't figure it out. And you know what to do. And you start getting more worried and everything. So what's the advice? Hashem, you're in charge. I let go, you let go, and you come, and then all of a sudden, oh, I put my wallet here. You're all of a sudden, when your head is in the right positioning, oh, now I know, now I remember where I put my wallet. It was right over here all along. You just forgot about it because of the stress. The stress of, oh my God, where's my wallet? And then your head goes blank because you're in a pachad, anxiety mode. So for sure you can't think of where it is. But then you just take a break from that and start doing other things and just let go. Then Hashem sends your head, it was here all along. Hey, look, it's over here. You just lift it up and it's over here.
Shakman is a simcha that they're having to show his word. There's another Tanai too, right?
He says in Sichot Aran that a person who does hitbodedut properly, he's able to be genuinely happy. And the opposite also he says someone who's always happy can also find it easier to express his heart. A leads to B and B leads to A. So you're saying that's another eight side that we mentioned, yeah, right? It's another very important eight side, the eight side of hitbodedut. That's what we said, to daven about it. You have to daven about the simcha. That's the eight side of hitbodedut. Davening about the simcha itself can lead a person. Yes, we're finished. All right. Yesher koach, everybody. He's going to be tzvah.
Yeah, 1 second before we finish. Mary's making casserole. Yes, Shane. Maybe we can help out. That's most scholars. Around. Anybody can help out. Yes, we're going to love Mary in a few minutes.
It worked. It's going to dance.